What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team.
We are live. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Friday week roundup of Rhomas, the Outstanding Brotherhood. I have had the honor to be a part of for 3 years. We've got Larry, Rob, and Troy. Good morning, gentlemen. Troy is calling in from Japan, where he's been for 2 days shy of a year. And so, Troy, please let us know the kind of changes you hinted while we were in the green room, but the kind of changes you've made in small daily habits you've had over there. Please tell us.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Ray, for having me on. And first one that I talked about before we went live, I went sober from marijuana. First for this job because I had a drug test, and Japan has a very strict drug law. But since then, I haven't sought it out, and I can say that the clarity is just so nice. But in the year, if I had to put this year into just a few sentences. Adjustment, seeking out pleasure, and then understanding that you can't just get pleasure from seeking out one thing. You have to be able to you have to find pleasure through strife and effort. And when I came here, I thought that it was going to be just a smooth sailing. I'm going to just live my life. It'll be no different. But no, there's a lot of things that I've had to adjust to. And since then, in the past year, I've really just things have been up and down, but I can say that things are working out now. Sorry to
Amazing.
You put me on the spot right now. I'm a little bit nervous.
Troy, you're doing a fantastic job, dude. You're doing a fantastic job. I'm so excited for you.
Good news is there's only 1 million people listening to you.
Basically, I went through a breakup, and then I got back into the gym, and things have been feeling a lot better. And then I made some connections with people since then. That's really all it was. That's all it's been.
Well,
it's
Troy,
nice work, bro.
Yeah, dude.
And
Rob, any reflections?
Yeah, good for you, man.
If you're in a new environment, you have to make connections with people. That's the biggest thing that I've understood throughout this entire thing.
Is there like something that's really stood out as like exceptionally positive from quitting?
The clarity of mind of being able to speak. Sorry, I'm also very nervous, so it's not coming out well. But
it's coming out great.
Being able to speak your mind authentically, because when I was smoking every fucking day, getting high every day, it was a struggle to be able to make my words matter. And now I can do that, and also do it in a different language.
Make your words matter to yourself, you mean?
Yeah. Just have it be authentic and have it be uh, not a stilted conversation, and just flow with a conversation, and especially in a different language. Very it's been very useful to not be just clouded all the time with another drug. Also,
Fantastic.
I'm so sorry. This is also the first conversation that I've had today in English, so I'm sorry that this is a little stilted.
Troy.
No, it's well spoken.
Yeah, dude. You can keep apologizing, but you don't have to, dude. You're doing great, and you know, you're giving us a lot to munch on. Like I was in preparation for the discussion today. I'm up here at a friend's ski chalet, and he had a book, Atomic Habits, on the mantelpiece. It looked like it had been gifted to him because like none of the pages were creased or anything, right? So it's kind of one of these books that men give each other. And Wes has talked about it a lot. And what it's about is daily habits. And daily habits is an issue that we return to over and over again. Daily habits that you want to do every day to realize your highest self. And so perhaps you quit smoking pot on the daily because you needed to qualify for this job and you were going into this environment where, you know, the drug laws are very strict. But it's just that you also adapted to a new environment, like Rob said, and it's just you've taken on this daily habit of living sober. And Larry, if I can throw it over to you, living sober for me, like one of the biggest challenge is sitting with uncomfortable thoughts, right? And I mean, you talk so much about how so many uncomfortable thoughts are self-manufactured. But can you riff on like what Troy and I go through living sober is that like we have to sit and navigate uncomfortable thoughts as they enter our mind or as we create them.
I'm sorry. Before Larry talks on this, I just want to say that this is a nicotine thing. Sorry.
Full disclosure. Thank you for the full disclosure.
Well, I think he speaks for all of us, because I think one of the most important elements in our understanding of what it is to be alive is to be the driver of our own life and to be the one who creates our emotional state, as opposed to having a drug create it or the people around us create it. Because, you know, as Gandhi said, we are the change we wish to see in the world. And if we're not behaving that way now, then we're kind of standing in line waiting for our turn. And we've all learned how to stand in line and how to wait. I've never been good at that. And I don't think any of us have. I think it's kind of imposed upon us, and then it's called manners, and it's the right thing to do. And yet, through all of the different experiences that we've all had and coming together at this moment in time right now, we are all asking ourselves, you know, who's running my life and who am I trying to please? And when I asked Troy about, you know, his more clarity in the words that he's using, what I was referring to is how he talks to himself. Because when you're talking through a filter, whether it's alcohol or drugs or some form of another addiction, you know, you can't get off the golf course, or you're exercising 12 hours a day, whatever it may be that you've found comfort in outside of who you are, you know, it's so difficult to find that if you think it's difficult. And that, I think, is what's been imposed on it. It's not easy. And sometimes we need other reasons to be able to show up authentically. And like in Troy's case, he wanted to get the job. They had strict drug laws. And he could have been told all during that experience that, hey, you're going to feel better about yourself when you're clear. Oh, hey, that sounds great, but I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now, which is the drug talking. And we wish that we were actually believing that. And so I think the excitement of having the opportunity for all of us to be together is to ask ourselves, how am I showing up for myself in this moment? And that answer reveals our habits. If you go into atomic habits, it reveals our habits, it reveals our attitudes, our beliefs, because those are completely in alignment with how we're feeling right now. And until we make some adjustments on those, then we put ourselves into a hopeful or a wishful state that, someday or as soon as, then I'll start really being authentic. So there's a little riff on that.
Thank you, Larry. Man, I love you. Rob, you said about the importance of making connections when you're in a new place, in response to what Troy was talking about. Do you have any experience being in a new place and having to make those connections, whether it's like a new employment situation or moving to a different part of the state or the country?
Not as something as dramatic as moving to a different country. That's for darn sure. I mean, like, good for you, man. That's a lot to take in. There's so many variables, dude, and plus now you're changing a lifestyle habit with not smoking weed, and that's great. But I think that I actually saw something from Jordan Peterson discussing how being in a new place or going to a new area and being uncomfortable, everyone kind of has that same self discussion about potentially being sensitive or uncomfortable or just out of place. But what he was saying is the only thing that really works in helping you feel more comfortable in that position, whether it's a party or a bar or a conference or a work meeting, is actually potentially addressing somebody else's concern, making them feel comfortable, making them forget about the same way you're feeling. And I thought that was pretty profound, because I think that is a great way to make good connections and to like break the ice and just forget about your own issues and try to help someone address with their issues. And then it's just a more fulfilling experience being in a social setting.
Yeah, that's I had a similar little journey over the last couple of days where I'm up at a private ski club that a friend of mine is a member of. I'm here in his little ski chalet, and like, I don't want you to picture like Vail or Aspen or the Austrian Alps. Like, this is
that's what I was picturing.
Version of that. We all came by car and not by hovercraft, but I don't have winter tires on my. So I'm here at this club. I'm not a member, but like, I have a bad habit of feeling insecure and inadequate, even if like I'm in a room of like 250 white, heterosexual, able-bodied, Christian, private school educated men. Like, I qualify in every fucking category, but still I have a way of feeling insecure, And so, and what you said, really resonated. Like, an easy way to get out of that is to just have like the service mindset. Like, how can I be of service to others? Whether that's clearing people's plates from the buffet dinner, or just like, if there's someone standing alone and feeling kind of weird, just like I'm feeling weird, maybe go up and say hi to that person. So I'll try that when I go back after this call. But
one other thing though, Ray, just because I feel like no one's going to think that of you, because you're like the charismatic, extroverted guy.
I know. But I know, and so are you, Rob. And do you never feel insecure, man?
I guess I've had that internal dialogue like anybody has, but it's been a long time since I let it have power over me.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times where I'll feel it and I'll just be like, dude, I am what I am. So like, I think like that came with age, but of course there's always times where it creeps back in. I just don't let it, I don't listen to it.
Now, to be honest, Rob, it isn't as bad today as it was 5 years ago, or like back when I was drinking and drugging, where my first weapon against that insecurity would be to get drunk or to get high in order to medicate that feeling, right? So like, I'm in a much better position today. And to be honest, like, since it was an all-men ski resort kind of weekend, I was basically tired of watching everyone drink for like 5 hours in a row. So there was that. But I don't have winter tires on my car, and I got stuck in a ditch. And it was only about 10 minutes before, a couple of cars passed by, sure. But then a car stopped, and the reverse lights came on. And they came towards me, and two guys got out of the car, and they said, "We're here to push." And they pushed me out of the ditch. And it was, I don't know how it's relevant to this conversation, but, the magnificent brotherhood of men kind of like emerged and helped. And they didn't have to do that, but they were just that's an example of being of service to others, I guess.
No.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
Sorry to interject that being here, like being the person that you stick out like a sore thumb as a foreigner, especially in the area that I'm at. There are damn near no foreigners at all where I'm at. If you're someone that speaks English, then you're going to, and you can't speak fluent Japanese, you're not speaking also the dialect of the area, you're going to stick out. And people will lend a helping hand to just like, hey, if you're an extroverted person, if you're not even just an extroverted person, just someone that reaches out to someone in any way, it really does make a difference between a night out at a bar where I'm just sitting there for hours on end. And I've done this before where I'm just sitting there for hours, nothing happens at all. And the second I reach out to someone just to be like, hey, what's up? And these people will, and I say in Japanese, and they immediately will jump on that. It's like, hey, how are you doing? Where are you from? What are you into? Just all these things. What's your job? And it has made such a difference in whether or not I'm just sulking at a place for 3-4 hours at a time. And the difference of like 30 minutes in, I'm having a great conversation, and some person, literally one person I had a conversation with, I've been to a hot spring bath, and it sounds weird, I guess from the Western perspective, but we just hung out and had in-depth conversations, completely naked, and just bathing. It sounds crazy from the Western perspective, but that's a very common thing here. You have those very intimate conversations about your love life, your job career, what your prospects are. And it was just based off of, hey, how are you, at a bar within 20 minutes of me sitting down. And even if you feel like you're the outsider in a situation, it is going to be so much better if you just step out of your comfort zone and just say hi to someone.
Nice work, bud. Good job.
Yeah, man.
I think that applies to, but I also think that applies to even if you have no language barrier. It's so much better to just say, hey, what's up? Even if someone's a millionaire and you have $10,000s of dollars of debt in your credit card, just like, hey, what's up? And then you guys can strike up a very good conversation that could blossom into something that's really, really good.
That other person may have been just as insecure, dude. And then like by you just saying hi, it's like one opportunity for them to just get out of their uncomfortable headspace. And like now it's everyone feels this way is what I've noticed. It's not just me or you or you or you. It's like everyone has this feeling. And then if you step out of that comfort zone, and like Wes has really helped me with this, just have honest conversations with people and be authentic. I think people crave authenticity, dude. So good job for being in a place that nobody, in a different culture with a different language. I mean, that's impressive, man. I mean, if you can do it, we can all do it.
Yeah, dude.
It's also that you recognize what Rob just shared with you, because you can really play down the fact that you're a foreigner in a strange land, stranger in a strange land, if you will. And that is just so huge that sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for it. Being uncomfortable and saying hello to somebody you don't know is huge. But we pay more attention to the fact that, God, it took me 2 hours to say hello, instead of paying attention to the fact you said hello. You're learning a new language. You've changed and as Rob said, I really believe, and this is not profound, but we are more alike than different. And so when we open up to say hello, we're really saying, I want to be a part of what you're going through. I want to find out more about you. We're here to push. And I think that's a great metaphor. You mentioned something earlier, Ray, about that I wanted to just riff a little bit about with the group. You said when you become of service to others. And Rob, you brought it up through Gordon that we generally, they say the best cure of depression is to go help somebody else. And so we know that. But interestingly enough, I was teaching a leadership course and a bunch of executives in the room, and some of them couldn't get over themselves. And I was talking about servant leadership. And a guy immediately said, I'll be damned if I'm going to be subservient to anyone. And I think you got to be really careful with words, because just because I'm speaking in English and you're listening and understand English, as we've talked about before, doesn't mean you understand it the way I do, because you don't have the experiences I had, and the words mean different to you. And he apparently had gotten tired at some point in his life of being taking orders from others, and thought he was, subservient, which means below. And so, but service is an elevator. Service is something that puts us into a position of being greater than self, because it's no longer about self. We've stepped aside, and if you're sitting there for hours getting tired of these people drinking, it's time to pull up and grab a glass of water and ask them, what's going on in their lives. Because what happens is you go, thank God I'm not drinking. Boy, they're talking about stupid stuff. They think they're funny. And what we're really doing is we're validating and justifying the fact that the move we made is superior to the move that they've made, or we wouldn't be judgmental. And I did an interview in a podcast yesterday with a gentleman who had just finished a book that, according to Inc. magazine, was top 4 books you have to read as a leader in 2024. And really a humble guy. And
wait, what book was it? Just for notation purposes.
Strategic. By Rich Horwath, Horwath. He's all about the power of strategy. And he's talking to me, and my book's all about the power of vision. And I said, you can talk strategy all day long for the best route to get to Florida, but if I'm interested in going to Seattle, I'm not really interested in your strategy and how to get to Florida. So where does vision come into play? And then he had needless to say, he had a lot to say about that. But, now I can't remember what it was I was bringing him into the picture for.
Well, what did Rich Horwath have to say about being of service to others, and service as an elevator instead of service as slavery? Did he have anything to contribute to that kind of thought process?
Well, he recognizes anybody who's in business for themselves or works for somebody, if you put yourself into a position of service, you're always going to have an audience. if you put yourself in, aren't you glad I'm here? I have great insights to share with you. You turn most people off. And if you do have a listener, it's not the audience you want. It's another judgmental, needy person. And so his whole essence in his book was making sure you keep drawing your audience out. Make sure you find out what their perception of the obstacles are, what they're going through. And as we listen to, Troy talking about being in a foreign country and being the only one in the room, and all of us get flashbacks to situations where we were somewhere and we were so out of our comfort zone. And what did we do? And we would like to be able to tell the story that, well, I stepped up and I introduced myself to everybody else. But there's many times a lot of us just went through it. And it was a hellacious experience. It was not wonderful. So the whole element of what the point that I'm making here is, again, it happened. Remember when I shared that story? I was teaching school. I was teaching psychology. It was a springtime, and it was in state of Washington, and sun was out. And when the sun's out in the state of Washington, everybody wants to go outside because it's generally raining all the time. And I got a bunch of 17-year-olds that are just about ready to graduate, seniors in high school. And I couldn't think of any way to keep their attention, and I said, hey, would any of you like to be able to go through life and never be rejected? And this girl sitting in the front row in an orange pantsuit, but she had to have a lot of you-know-what to put that on and go to school in high school, started crying. And needless to say, it got everybody's attention. And I told myself, well, I'll have a conversation with her, when class is over. But I said, well, what would you need to do to go through life and never be rejected? Because we all know the importance of acceptance. And people said, never try anything. Don't leave your room. Stay in bed all day. And so they're continuing, but they did. I did ask them, though, would there be any value if you could do that? And everybody had an answer to that, and everybody saw value in that. Well, I had a 17-year-old young man in the back of the room who did well, but he never participated. Always kept to himself. He raised his hand. And, because the question was, what would you need to do to go through life and never be rejected? And he raised his hand. And I thought to myself, well, this is going to be good. And he said something that was so profound, and it absolutely changed my life. And he said, accept yourself first. And how many of us have been brought up to be accepted? If you make the team, you're accepted. If you get the grades, you're accepted. If she says yes when you ask her to dance, you're accepted. If they serve you at breakfast, your parents, you're accepted. And we don't know it, but subtly we get on this quest, if I could just be accepted. And we overlook the only person that's capable of doing that for us. And so, yeah, Rob.
Do you have any strategies to help people accept themselves? Like, is there any exercises?
Yeah, the best exercise is as soon as your eyes open up in the morning, it's what's the conversation you have with yourself? How's it start? And most
like
people,
affirmation?
I get enough sleep. Yeah, and it's making a statement of, I care and love myself and look forward to the contribution I make today so that others will enjoy the day as much as I do. Now, here's what's interesting about the brain. The brain does not like conflict and contradiction. It likes predictability. So when you say that, if you're feeling any other way, you have a choice now to decide, do I want to go with, or do I want to stay, I didn't get enough sleep, I'm kind of tired. And so since our brain has been programmed with what we see and how we talk to ourselves about it, we change how our brain understands by talking about the experience that we want as though it's already taken place. And a lot of people call that visualization, or they call it affirmations. But unfortunately, we get caught up in the titles and we don't understand the exercise. And the exercise is what conversation do you choose to follow? The way you'd like to have things unfold by how you're feeling now, or would you like to ask a question that asks you how you're feeling now? For instance, did I get enough sleep? No, I woke up at 3 and then all I did was I had one thought after another. Or I love myself, I'm going to make a positive contribution and look for the growth of others around me. As soon as I say that, remember W. Clement Stone was the inverse paranoid? Remember he believed the universe was conspiring to do him good? And the first thought he had when his eyes opened up in the morning was something wonderful is going to happen today. Now, what did he open himself up to all day long? So it's with that mindset, it's with, in the science is neuroplasticity, the fact that our thoughts can create new realities for us. Because our thoughts have created the reality we're living now, our thoughts can also create a new reality for us, but we have to change our mind, not our behavior. And most people try to change their behavior. I'm not going to do that today. Troy, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to pontificate on a much less deeper way. I'm sorry about that. But so I have this one student. I would say he's a class clown. He goofs off. He doesn't go to every class. Oftentimes he'll skip classes to just mess around and and sometimes one of the teachers will ask me to hang out with him and we'll talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And he can't speak English. So we end up just using translation tools, my limited Japanese, and we just end up talking about whatever he's interested in. And every time our conversations happen, we talk about what does he want to do? What is the thing that he wants to pursue? And it's nothing within the traditional Japanese education system, which is really rigid. It's just pipeline into being a salary man. And he wants to be an artist. He wants to be a very creative person. And we end up just talking about what are the things you want to create? What are the things you want to put out into this world? And I think that's a much better thing for people to do. Also, in the second, as you said, the second they wake up, it's just like, yeah, you want to do whatever the fuck you want to do. Sorry to swear, but just the second you wake up, what is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you want to do? It is something that will drive you way further than, oh, I have to do this. I have to get to my job at 8 a.m. and then work until 7 p.m. and then eventually get to my children at 10 p.m. when they're just falling asleep. And that's a very common thing in Japan that people go through, that they are just working the grind from 7 till 10 easily. And that sounds like the thing that you're doing in the West, where you're working towards a very great future. That's just the common, like, office worker shit that people go through. But with this kid that I'm talking to, I'm like, hey, you don't have to do the 7 to 9 grind. Just please pursue the thing that you want to do that will benefit people. He wants to create music, and I'm like, you will make people happier with music. Just go for that. And sorry, a little bit of what Larry's, not a little bit, a lot of what Larry said kind of resonated with that. Was like, the second you wake up, what is going to be in pursuit of making people feel better? And this kid is on that path, and I'm really trying to drive that into him. And I think we can all follow that example of like, you should be waking up in the morning. What am I going to do to what are you going to do to help people in making things better for themselves in whatever way possible, whether it be a creative work, whatever it's your career that benefits other people in service of others. And I've been really hammering that into this kid that like, yeah, this current system that you're in within the Japanese educational system is not going to create the value that you want to put into other people, but
Troy,
you should stray from that path and just go for that. Sorry, Ray. I'm
so
rambling a little
glad
bit.
you used the term create value, because I was thinking that's what Wes would say, and that if this young man does not feel served by the educational system, just like I didn't. I mean, I think it's amazing that you can have a conversation with him that there's more than one way for you to create value. And again, like Larry said, if the language serve others doesn't work for him, like creating value, we're talking serving others, creating value. We're talking about the same thing, right? We're talking about him like sharing his gifts with the world, or like putting his gifts to good use. And to come back to the issue of you moving to Japan, before you started this little anecdote, I was going to ask you, how did you navigate the isolating versus connecting, right? Because like in 12-step recovery, we say that so the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection, right? And so I was going to ask you, how do you create connection in what, like Larry said, when you're a stranger in a foreign land? What are some of the ways that you've been able to create connection? Because it can be just as challenging for us in our hometown to create connection. Troy, it sounds like you made an amazing connection with this guy who was kind of this young man who was rather isolated from the rest of the tribe.
So with that kid, we're not. He's my student. He's 15 years old.
I know.
I'm not making the connection with him.
No, it's a mentorship type connection, is what
It's
you mean.
it's amazing.
Type
Yeah,
connection.
but I can speak on making connections with people where you go out. You have to be out in the metaphorical wilderness. It's not actual wilderness. There's not trees and moss around you. I'm going out into the capital city, and I went out one night. It's been like 4 or 5 months. No, Jesus, 5 months, 6 months since I went out and just met some person. I went out to a place that I knew had some live music, and one of the DJs was performing. And obviously, that's not going to happen for everyone, but this DJ coincidentally was a very big person locally, and we just were able to talk and have a good rapport. And then she showed me to all the places that have live music, and it's been a really good thing for just being able to connect with other people. And it sounds very shallow of like, oh, you just have to go out there, but it really did take me going out. And it wasn't the first time that I went out. I went out probably dozens of times before that, with no luck of ever talking to people and just kind of sitting on my ass and not ever making any connections with people. But
not taking the risk.
yeah, I went out to a place that I was alone and just like, hey, there's live music here. Also, the live music that was going on was not the stuff that I was into, but I eventually started talking to this one person, and then the DJ got off her set, and then we ended up talking, and we bonded from there. And she took me around to a lot of different places that it has resulted in me not having the I'm not a pillar of this place, because I've also only been in this community for 5-6 months. I'm not looking for that, but I'm also feeling a connection with people where I can go into a place almost like Cheers, like if you've seen the show Cheers, where everybody knows your name and you just you have a good time, and just like you come into a place and like, hey, what's up? What's oh genki desu ka? It's like, oh yeah, genki desu yo. And just like everyone is just like happy that you're making an appearance because you made the effort to do that prior and show that you're not looking for anything besides another connection. And it has been so beneficial for me, because 6 months into this trip, I was ready to just like jump ship. I was done with this place. I was ready to get the fuck out.
The meaning.
I started taking care of myself, but in the second 6 months of this 1 year escapade, I think the connections that I've made were way more beneficial than just like taking care of my physical health.
You just can't give up too soon.
Yeah, but also, yeah, one, you can give up easily when you're exercising, eating better, but your connections are not there. You need to have those connections with other people, but that takes a little bit of feeling uncomfortable and being alone temporarily. And when you're in a new place, just being like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I have a quick question for Ray, if it's okay, because I feel like you mentioned something about connection, and then you were also talking about it, Troy. And I'm just curious to know, do you think the reason some of these people are drinking, Ray, or Larry, because obviously you know psychology so well, because they're trying to make that connection, even though maybe it's not as genuine, but at least it brings the walls down?
Absolutely, dude. A bar is, I mean, I don't have a PhD in this subject, but like I do have my 10,000 hours. But like a bar is somewhere where strangers can go, and there is a shared hobby or practice. It's like if you go to church or you go to a temple or a mosque, you're going to be surrounded with people who share that faith, right? And so when you go to a bar, everyone is going there to drink, and so that automatically creates a kinship and affinity. Like it automatically makes you a tribe, and then plus add that the alcohol, maybe the first or sip or the first drink or the first couple of drinks, you can summon the courage to tell that joke, right? So yeah, bars and alcohol are like supremely like supreme technical achievements in like bringing down walls and getting people to connect. Now, are they actually connecting? Well, so they are connecting, but I would say it is harder to connect with someone, sober on the subway or on the bus or whatever. But yeah, plus, what's better than that first sip of beer after like you get home from a day at work, or once you go to the bar after work, like that first sip of beer, I can't think of anything that feels better than that.
I have a weird anecdote with this, because of Japan's very strict laws with a lot of other drugs. Alcohol is ubiquitous. Jesus, sorry. Alcohol is ubiquitous in Japan. It's the thing that everyone is doing. It's either nicotine, caffeine, or alcohol. But the best connection that I had was with someone that doesn't drink for the most part. Like if I've seen her drink maybe twice, and we've hung out a few dozen times at this point. And if she drinks, she has the equivalent of half a beer in the entire night. And an entire night is, when I say night, it's from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. It's the late nights are crazy here, but I would agree that with Ray that not having a connection through substances is a much deeper connection that you'll create, because
Well, do you ever think there's any value in drinking or potentially smoking in small doses? Like, Larry, do you have an opinion on that? Like just a small dose or potentially to bond, or is there any value in what I would say controlled use?
No, I'm certainly not an expert on that at all. I would say it all depends on the outcome you're looking for. If the outcome is social connection and you don't know any other way, the challenge again with inducing drugs that trip our dopamine, so we start fooling our brain into expecting it and not giving us the dopamine, that great feeling, by just natural causes, because now the brain becomes addictive to that injection. And it's a great drug. So my answer, I guess, to your question is, the challenge with connecting under a substance of whatever kind is it's not sustainable unless you continue the substance, because you generally forget most of the conversation you had anyway. So you got to start the connection all over again. And true friendships that we've had, if we think about when we were young, most of us did not have a lot of substance issues. You know, we just purely enjoyed each other's company. Didn't matter what we were doing it together, which is very innate. We have no identity without other people in our lives. We're not hermits. We don't live in trees. You know, there's a reason, and it's generally to propagate the species, that we become social creatures. And as substances are brought into our lives, that becomes the norm. And as long as everybody else is doing it, it's considered normal. And when we're growing and attempting to find out what this thing life is about and who we are, we don't discover it, we create it. Because if you discover it, you're discovering someone else's creation. You know, and that's nice, because I love music, and so I loved other people's creation of it because it gives me a great feeling to hear it and whatnot. And I think a lot of us, when we go and we listen to or we spend money on someone who's at the top of their game, there's a little bit of giddiness that occurs inside of us when we're experiencing someone fulfilling their passion. And we don't recognize that we have the same passion and we have the same gift inside of us, but we haven't allowed ourselves to acknowledge it. And so we look for acknowledgement from the outside, which then leads to, well, if I just have one drink, And it doesn't matter whether one drink leads to 100 drinks. The challenge is that it's not coming from you. And I'm not talking about living a pure life, because I'm certainly not an example of that. But when people come to me and they go, how do I get to feel better about myself? It generally gets to the point where they're able to rely on themselves and not a substance.
So you don't think there's any medicinal potential purposes?
Yeah, no. Then if they want to go out and have a drink or whatever, they're doing it to enjoy the company around them, not to break the isolation.
I see.
You follow?
Less of a crutch.
Yes.
Less of a crutch, more of like a catalyst potentially.
Yeah, it's more of a social thing. You know, I pick up a bowling ball when I'm at a bowling. Now, if you see me walking down the street with a bowling ball, you know, that guy's got a problem. So yeah, I think I'm a firm believer in the whole concept of moderation. As we're not perfect human beings. We're all trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, and Rob,
it's interesting.
You know what? Something that comes to mind, Rob, like of why people go to bars, or like when you connect with someone in a bar versus when you connect with someone out in the wild. I think that after we have a couple of drinks, we can look for similarities and make a connection, right? Whereas sometimes when we're sober, all we see is differences. Well, he's black, or he's Asian, or she's a woman, so she's not going to, I'm not sure how to really connect with them. And then you see someone who looks like you and you come up with other reasons why. They're just looking for differences, right? And so I think that, and this isn't my idea, this is something I picked up along the way from somebody else. But if we can look for similarities instead of differences, I think that makes connections a lot easier.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, I wish Corey Dambert was here. And I don't know if this is even Rhomas topic approved conversation, but sometimes I do wonder if in the right situation for the right reasons with the right amount, sometimes those things can help us connect, not as a crutch, but just to like let our guard down. Like meeting somebody in the wild. I would agree with you. Yeah, like this could be a conversation for one of our situations, but I guess when I say I'm older in relative to dating, right? So I'm single, but I feel like I've tried to meet people in the wild. And like at the time before online dating and like copious amounts of drinking, it was simpler. I will 100% agree with Larry on that. But I do think that sometimes people want to meet someone and they're just so in their way, and there's ways in which they can like kind of feel more comfortable to feel approachable, where if I go up to talk to them in Starbucks, they're uncomfortable and they don't want to talk and they want to push me away. But potentially at the bar, they're willing to talk and they really wanted to do that. It's just they weren't comfortable in the setting, or they would rather swipe on a phone. And it's like, I wonder sometimes if in the right situation, and I have some great stories where there were drinking or marijuana or whatever it may be. And I do feel like that's had a longer lasting and great relationship with the people that I've still have a 99% of the time sober relationship with. So I'm just curious, I wonder if there is validity or overuse, or it's a crutch. It's like a very complicated conversation.
I think
just from my, sorry, go ahead, Larry.
I think that the whole element of connection is we get, like, I think it was what Ray said, is getting caught up in judgment. Judgment keeps us isolated until we find someone who judges as we do. And so we're comfortable together, but we're limited by this judgment now. We can only hang around with these kind of people. We can only be in these kind of situations. And growth doesn't occur when we're comfortable. That's just called repeating the same thing, expecting different results. It's insanity. And so I'm not saying get uncomfortable. I'm saying keep growing, keep experimenting, move to Japan. I mean, and my wife and I we sold our house and moved to an area we'd never lived in before. And we ended up joining a pickleball group.
Heck yeah.
And everybody was, and this is in Corona Del Mar, which is a hi-fi, everybody's got a lot of money and everything else in it. And it took me a while to get comfortable being around people with, 150-foot yachts and whatnot, because I found myself judging myself. I found myself comparing myself. And I found that when I started comparing myself in a conversation, their lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what they were saying because they were not like me. And yet they were more like me, but I was not allowing myself to experience this because of how I was brought up and my prejudices about people with silly money and all of these elements. And I realized that I'm a great human being, but I've got all these beliefs that have been developed over the years about who I'm comfortable with and who I'm not comfortable with. And so it's been a real growth experience. And it turns out that these are amazing people, just like everybody else. The other day, I'm driving down the corner and here's a guy, homeless. He looks like he's in his 70s. He's all wrinkled up. But he says, give me a little happiness. How about a smile? And he didn't, and I pulled over and grabbed a $5 bill out and I go, you know what this is for? And he goes, no. I said, your sign put a smile on my face. And it was, but before it was like, okay, I'm not going to give somebody some money to go buy booze, and I'm not going to, and I've been so judgmental instead of, why don't you participate in what that person's going through? You have no idea. And yet that's an example of what happens to us. And it's the reptilian brain. It's our amygdala that stores all the information to protect us. And so we've been brought up to be leery of strangers. Don't go in that neighborhood. Don't play with those kind of people. And we don't realize as little kids how imprinted that gets. And that's why when we go into this element of wanting to be independent, which we all know occurs, and our parents would like to disown us if we have parents, we're just fighting to find out who we are and what kind of rules I want to live by. And
Absolutely.
We've already developed all of these biases.
You think that's from childhood, Larry?
Also it's evolution. There's been millions of years of evolution before we popped out of the womb, and our brain has been pre-programmed to know how to survive. It knows how to divide cells. We didn't go to school to learn how to divide cells, or to respirate or digest. All of these things were pre-programmed prior to birth, and other things that were pre-programmed as well are our gifts and our talents and things that are just natural for us. And real quickie, one of the reasons why most of us can't value our gifts, because we were brought up to believe if you didn't work hard for it, it has no what? Value.
No,
and none of us work hard for our gifts. They came naturally to us. And so we should have been brought up to be able to develop those instead of, shucks, gee whiz. It's nothing. I'll go work at something that is much more difficult for me than just allowing myself to be the best version of myself.
Makes sense. I just don't know why people feel so judged all the time. Because what's ironic is you're feeling judged, but everyone that's judging you is in the exact same situation feeling judged themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, where did this level of judgment come from?
Well, when you look at it in a simplistic fashion, like we're talking about, it seems absurd, doesn't it?
Because this group, for instance, I've been doing it for like a month, and I realized we're all the same. We are all the same, which I feel like if you can bridge that gap, like part of me wants to challenge Ray, even as the sober guy with people drinking and understanding. I guarantee you a lot of them are drinking because they are uncomfortable. I'm sure there are some that just want to get rowdy. But since they're drinking, maybe you can have more honest conversation, and maybe they'll give you a more honest answer back. Maybe you should try to put yourself out there and see if you can't potentially take advantage of the inhibitions or the fact
I'll do it today, Rob.
misjudged.
I'll do it today.
You have to report back and let us know.
And
100%.
even here where I'm dealing with mid-20s, early 30s kids. I call all of them kids. They're just kind of going out to a bar to have a good time. Even the ones that are the most fucked up, the ones that are completely saturated by alcohol, it doesn't matter that they're trying to maybe hide a certain thing in their lives. They're coming out and trying to give their authentic self. And that also goes for the people that are completely sober coming out to these things. And they're trying to express themselves in the best way possible. And I think the DJs that I've met here, I was in a place where I was completely a minority, not in just being a foreigner. They were all DJs. They're all people that are working on some next project. And it was a really good time to be like, hey, I'm not working on a DJ project, but I can talk to them about these things and ask them about their music. And yeah, like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but
You're awesome, Troy. Don't worry about it, man.
The
Troy,
stuff that Larry's talking about of like you're kind of just sticking out as a sore thumb in your mind, but then these people are just trying to make another human connection with another person. It's just the human way of trying to connect with people. It doesn't matter if they're working on a project or not. They just want to talk to another person.
yeah, Troy. Thank you, brother, for contacting us from across the world and telling us how you make connections with people, how you look for similarities instead of differences. And once we're offline, I want to hear all about this female DJ from Japan showing you all the cool spots.
The girl that I fell in love with.
Reminds me
Troy's in love.
Yeah, Troy.
No,
having you on the line
it will
for
never
an hour
happen.
today reminds me of like the good old days where we used to like do push-ups and like challenge each other to do like 100 push-ups and stuff. So it's so great to have you back, man. Larry, I love you, brother.
Thank you.
You contribute so much to this group. Thank you for being here again today, Larry.
Thank you.
And Rob, I'm so glad you're part of our brotherhood, dude. You're just an awesome guy, and I'm glad you're on board. And you are like a ninja in the way you're able to ask the right question at the right time with the fewest amount of words. So I look forward to continuing this journey with you too. Okay, brother?
Thanks, Bray. I appreciate that.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
All
right, Jen.
Yeah.
Let us know how it goes, Ray.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. I'm going to an open bar, like après-ski situation. Pray for me.
Yeah, I will, buddy. Got my fingers crossed.
All right. We'll
Those
see you on
guys,
Monday,
bro.
lads.
Take care, everybody.